That's actually how it is. And then it goes on to briefly explain for us, saying what exactly. Sometimes, in the depths of hell, when punishing the unfortunate sinners, they will pull out your tendons and roots. Isn't this just the hell of the eighth consciousness? Sometimes, in hell, they have yakshas take the hearts of sinners. Sometimes, the fires of hell boil the bodies of sinners. These are just what people commonly refer to as a bit of this, a bit of that. Sometimes, in hell, burning copper pillars punish sinners. Sometimes, stone pillars and tigers burn and crush accumulated sinners. Sometimes, freezing ice. Sometimes, endless wait. Sometimes, dust flies for miles. Sometimes, many drills and fire spears. Sometimes, the chest and back are threatened. Sometimes, hands and feet are burned. Sometimes, iron filings are twisted around the feet. Sometimes, people are driven with iron hooks. Sometimes, people are locked in iron prisons. The names of the hells were mentioned earlier. Here, it is describing the situations in which these sinners received their retribution in hell. The very first line refers to those individuals who commit evil speech, deliberate lies, and other such offensive actions which are considered harmful transgressions. According to these kinds of sins: slandering the three jewels, undermining others' faith, that is, faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. After death, all such people will end up in these kinds of hells. This belongs to the eighth consciousness. Just like the roots and young are controlled by mistaken speech, karmic actions entangle the body. In this hell, you can't live even if you want to, and you can't die even if you try. Hell is definitely not a place where you suffer once and then die. If you die in hell, do you get reborn elsewhere? You can't die. In hell, the karmic wind blows, you come back to life to suffer again. Day and night. Dying and coming back to life thousands and thousands of times. Like this, it goes on until all their karmic retribution is paid off, and the time it takes to finish is already calculated, countless cycles. They have to endure this suffering as retribution. If the karmic punishment is not fully and completely endured, they can never truly and utterly leave hell. But that karmic retribution is a really troublesome thing. For example, if you slander the three jewels or destroy someone's faith, when will that kind of karma ever be completely exhausted? Only when the influence of what you said has completely disappeared can you leave hell. If that influence still exists, there's no way for you to leave hell. And this influence often drags in a lot of other things. The seed of those harsh words starts to take effect in their alaya consciousness. When they encounter the three jewels, they start to doubt. They just can't give rise to faith. How great is that influence? If, like nowadays, what you say gets recorded, and then the recording is spread everywhere, distributed all over the place, whether it's being sold or just passed around as an opportunity. If what you said is destructive to the three jewels, as long as there's even one tape left in this world, you have no way to escape hell. And if you put it into writing, as long as there's even one book left in this world, you still can't escape hell. Only then do we realize how terrifying this matter really is. We must take responsibility for our words and writings. It's truly as was said before, don't take small evils lightly, thinking they are harmless. Now, the second line, taking the hearts of the guilty, the work of yakshas. This kind of karmic cause. Master King Ming, in his insightful commentary, clearly tells us that in the human world, those individuals who deliberately steal from their own parents or their respected superiors, driven by an overwhelming material desire, will inevitably suffer this severe and inescapable kind of karmic retribution. Their intentions, you see, are evil. Just think about it for a moment. If someone dares to steal from their very own parents or their immediate superiors, is there anyone else's valuable belongings they wouldn't dare to steal from at all? This kind of heart is truly bad. In hell, the yakshas will devour their hearts. Now, the third significant one here is the ancient cauldron, the burning cauldron of hell, or the pot. Ding actually means a substantial cooking pot. Even now, many people in the Fujian province still affectionately call a cooking pot or a ding. Back in ancient times, stoves hadn't been invented yet, so what did people use to cook their food? They used a cauldron. This cauldron had 3 legs, with fire burning underneath. When cooking a dish, it was in a cauldron. Ancient texts mention lining up cauldrons to eat, meaning many dishes, a rich spread. That's what lining up cauldrons to eat means. There's a kind of setup nowadays. It's like the buffet you see in big restaurants. Look at buffet. The chafing dishes are really nice, made of stainless steel, with 4 legs and a fire underneath to keep the food warm so it doesn't get cold. In ancient times, the cauldron had 3 legs. Later, after the stove was invented, the legs were removed from the cauldron and it became a pot without legs. The pot and the cauldron are actually the same thing. This is precisely how it's explained in the karmic consequences, specifically, breaking precepts, killing for sacrifices, or consuming meat. Break time equals 0.5s / using food in this particular way. Burning mountains and forests. Roasting living beings. How truly terrifying and utterly dreadful. The 4th line, or being burned alive by the scorching hot copper pillar in the deepest pits of hell as a severe and just retribution for committing capital crimes. This is precisely like the horrific torture described in ancient novels, the agonizing and excruciating punishment of being roasted alive. In the past, The humble layman Dan Tai Ren once earnestly pleaded with the Emperor of Mount Tai to completely abolish this severe punishment, and only then did he truly realize that the various realms of hell are profound manifestations of karmic force, not something merely created by human beings. The next line says, "Or being burned by the fires of hell, with the condemned sinking into the flames. This is a raging inferno with nowhere to escape, and you are burned alive. But as soon as the wind blows, the fire flares up again and continues to burn. There's never any way to escape." In the sacred sutras, these are clearly described as the retributions for numerous unwholesome deeds. All right. The sixth line specifically refers to the icy cold hell, which is also a retribution for certain unwholesome and truly evil actions. The seventh line speaks of boundless suffering. As for what came before this, I've already explained to you earlier that, in terms of intention, this refers to breaking the precept of fasting in a previous life, making vows to uphold the fasting precept but then breaking it, as well as the unwholesome karma from impure actions. This actually was a distinctive and formidable type of weapon extensively utilized during ancient times. It is indeed quite rare and exceptionally difficult to encounter in the present day. If you go to a museum, you might still see some of these small arrowheads. Generally, it was called a sneak attack weapon. When people were unprepared, it would be thrown or launched at them. So what about now? Now we don't have that anymore. It's been replaced by handguns, things of that sort. From this, we can clearly and unequivocally see that the karmic retribution, which is a consequence of one's actions, truly comes from using these insidious sneak attack weapons to form deep enmity with all sentient beings and to mercilessly kill all kinds of living creatures. Especially when it comes to hunting. And what about the bullets used in hunting rifles? They're different from regular bullets. Because when hunting, regular bullets aren't always accurate enough, so shotgun shells are used. They are scattershot, made of iron pellets. When fired, they spread out over an area, making it almost impossible for animals within that area to escape. This is the kind of karmic retribution one receives. The musket is basically the same as the earlier tube gun in terms of meaning. But here, there's more involved, like fire, and also betrayal and deceit among brothers. This is mentioned in the Shurangama Sutra as the retribution for violence. When you encounter this specific kind of karmic result, which is a direct consequence of your past actions, it is unequivocally because you have caused harm to other beings. Especially nowadays, when we mistreat animals. When we treat animals in this particular and specific way. This is all considered to be truly cruel and merciless. Who would have ever thought it would bring about such a profound retribution? The 11th line of the text says, "But it burns the hands and feet." This is precisely what we commonly refer to as individual karma and individual retribution. If you yourself create the karma, you will inevitably get burned. You personally made the karma, so you will certainly get burned. The particular thing about the shoe thief and the dog was indeed mentioned earlier. And then there's the formidable and inescapable iron net, a vast and intricate celestial structure that stretches across the heavens, an omnipresent force. If you find yourself caught within its confines, much like a powerful and majestic horse, your entire being will be engulfed in an intense and agonizing blaze, your whole body consumed by a searing, uncontrollable fire, leaving you in immense pain and distress. So, the Sutra also tells a story, and this story was quoted by Master Ching Yin in his commentary. It is said that the esteemed monk Senghu once saw a donkey, and this particular donkey was completely burned a fiery red all over its entire body, from head to tail. The Buddha, with profound wisdom, told Senghu, that creature is not merely a common donkey as it appears. In fact, a very long time ago, during the enlightened era of Kayapa Buddha, this very being was a dedicated and devout monk. So, when the monks were dividing up food, how did they divide the food? He always made sure to take a little more for himself. Millimeter. By creating this bad karma, he had to endure this retribution. In the Sutra, it talks about the iron rail punishment. Basically, these sinners are made to ride on these iron rails, and the iron furnaces are blazing with fire all over their bodies. So, how are these sinners punished? They have to endure this kind of suffering as retribution. The punishments and suffering in hell are truly unbearable. Honestly, there's no end to what could be said about it. Now, let's look at the original text of the sutra below. For such retributions, in each desire realm, there are hundreds and thousands of instruments of the night path. These instruments of the night path are basically torture devices. They're what we would call torture devices today. They're nothing but copper, iron, stone, and fire. These four materials are what manifest there. All the torture devices inside are made of copper, iron, and stone. It's all just a sea of fire. What you experience there is all of these things. We often say someone is really ruthless, calling them iron-hearted or stone-hearted. So in hell, all these forms that appear are made of these materials. A mind that is pure and gentle, such qualities simply can't be found there. That's why it's so important to truly understand your own mind. So, if you are truly ruthless and undeniably cruel, how long do you honestly think that swagger of yours will genuinely last? After those initial few days of feeling incredibly powerful, what exactly happens next? Have you ever truly thought about that, even for a moment? The consequences of such actions are simply unimaginable. We truly need to deeply understand, just as the treatise on consciousness only meticulously explains, and as the various sutras vividly describe the realms of hell, are there truly powerful Yama kings presiding over hell? Are there really those terrifying ghostly wardens within the depths of hell? Actually, there aren't any external entities or forces at play. It's all entirely manifested and created by your own mind, much like the vivid and often surreal experiences you have within a dream. You only realize a dream is false when you wake up. It's all empty, nothing real. But while you're dreaming, you think everything in it is real. So, the three evil realms are just like a dream. In the same way, a human life in this world, decades of passing seasons, how is that not also a dream? And furthermore, even the entire Dharma realm is a dream. The Diamond Sutra puts it well. All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows. All conditioned phenomena, that includes the entire Dharma realm. The whole Dharma realm is conditioned. Only the one true Dharma realm is unconditioned. So, the Shravakas, Pratyekabuddhas, Bodhisattvas, and even the Buddhas of the provisional teachings have not left the realm of conditioned phenomena. In other words, all their magnificent adornments are just like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows. Appearances have no real substance, and events have no inherent benefit. This is the true reality of things. They are all manifested from karmic retribution. Let's look at the last line of this sutra passage. If we were to elaborate on the sufferings and retributions in hell, if we were to explain them in detail, one by one, it would be said, once karma has matured, there are hundreds and thousands of kinds of suffering. Just one hell contains hundreds and thousands of kinds of suffering, so much pain. Not to mention the suffering caused by excessive desires. The torments of hell are truly beyond description. Now, as I praise the Buddha, if someone asks, I will briefly explain it like this. If we were to explain everything in detail, we could never finish. The Bodhisattva is speaking honestly here. If he were to explain everything to you in detail, he could never finish, no matter how hard he tried. This is the truth, not an exaggeration. So, let's make a summary here. We absolutely must not end up in hell. If you want to avoid hell, you must never commit any evil deeds, not even the smallest ones. Why is that? Because in our alaya consciousness, there are many seeds of hell, these habits and tendencies we've accumulated over countless eons. What is this small evil deed? It's a condition. If you keep providing conditions for the seeds of hellish karma in your alaya consciousness, if you don't cut off those conditions, it's very likely you'll end up creating those karmic results again. This is something we must be vigilant about, so you absolutely must not take it lightly or think that small misdeeds don't matter. If you do, you're making a huge mistake. Small misdeeds conditions, and in the alaya consciousness, seeds of hellish karma. When these seeds encounter conditions, that reality will manifest. When that reality appears, it's truly terrifying and escaping extremely, extremely difficult. So when you truly understand, you'll let go of all worldly attachments, focus wholeheartedly on reciting the Buddha's name, and seek rebirth in the Pure Land. This is indeed the safest, the fastest, and the most reliable method to forever escape the three evil paths and the 6 realms of rebirth. Break time equals 0.5s/, ensuring a permanent liberation. Alright, that's all for today's talk.
Amuse-pas, 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 amuse-pas. Amisaba, 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 Amisaba.